Hello.
Ciao. Hola.
Hola.
We're doing another passage from the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah,
Do you want me to read it?
Sure. Read whatever you connected with. I read the same section. This is chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita. Around, let's see, verse 30, 34 to verse 41.
In the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. I read this over and over a bunch of times, so why don't you pick out some spots, or you can read the whole thing too if you want.
Yeah, I'm going to read the whole thing through because I think it's really beautiful.
It's really good, yeah.
I'm going to start here.
Okay.
Better than any ritual is the worship achieved through wisdom. Wisdom is the final goal of every action.
Woo.
Find a wise teacher, honor him, ask him your questions, serve him.
Or her.
Or her. Someone who has seen the truth will guide you on the path to wisdom. When you realize it, you will never fall back into delusion. Knowing it, you see all beings in yourself and yourself in me. Even if you were the most evil of evildoers, wisdom is the boat that would carry you across the sea of all sin. Just as firewood is turned to ashes in the flames of a fire, all actions are turned to ashes in wisdom's refining flames. All actions are turned to ashes in wisdom's refining flames. Nothing in the world can purify as powerfully as wisdom. Practiced in yoga, you will find this wisdom within yourself. Resolute, restraining his senses, the man of faith becomes wise. Once he attains true wisdom, he soon attains perfect peace. Ignorant men without faith are easily mirrored in doubt. They can never be truly happy in this world or the world beyond. A man is not bound by action. Who renounces action through yoga, who concentrates on the self, and whose doubt is cut off by wisdom. So beautiful, so powerful.
Yeah, really, really potent. We got really excited the last time we did a little reading about really like bringing some, just like what's an average person's perspective on the Bhagavad Gita. It's such a profound text, and I've been studying it for a very long time, and we learn about it in yoga teacher trainings and stuff, but it's such a dense text that it's something really, if we're it's a lifelong journey, just the Bhagavad Gita in itself. So I'm really excited to get into it and really go forward. There's anything you want to start with?
First, I mean, wisdom is said so many times in these passages. So I want to talk about wisdom and get clear on what wisdom really is and what it means and what it's referring to here.
Sure, okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, like wisdom, as far as my relationship with the word, is it comes from experience. Like someone who is wise is someone who has experienced things to a degree and figured out what's best, right? Someone who has experienced life, and if you're wise in the stock market, right? You just have a natural kind of ability because you've been involved with it, you've practiced it, you've studied it, you've made mistakes, and you've become wise through that journey of being a part of whatever it is.
Beautiful, yes. So I think it's so important to note that this is very different than knowledge, intelligence, things that you just gain from learning. It's a different type of learning because it comes from experience.
Yeah.
Like I think of a woman who's lived, or a woman or man who's lived in the land and who works with the land. This is just an example, but someone who through experience of working in whatever land that they're in, whatever climate they're in, gains a deep understanding, a wisdom of that earth and how to work with it, and the herbs that are grown there, and stuff like that.
And
so
you'd say, there we have a wise woman,
right?
Or a wise man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. I think that's great. So one thing we can, I guess, agree on here is that wisdom requires experience. Right. That's kind of what we're claiming, and I think I've read that before as part of its defining qualities.
Let's look up the definition. I'm just curious.
Cool. And I'm just going to pick up while you do that. And there's a lot of stuff to really be clarified in this little passage that we read here. Just right off the bat, this is one that I underlined. Wisdom is the final goal of every action. Now, what this is saying to me anyway is that this is what mindfulness is. This is when you're really, like we talk about this a lot, but just being present and just being aware before we get influenced by feelings and thoughts and whatever outside influences that may come in, before we make actions and decisions in the world and all that kind of stuff. So wisdom being the final goal of every action, it means that we're really with life, and we're really being with life in such a clear way that we're able to become wise or develop wisdom because of how we are with it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. If, in other words, alternatively, if we get really absorbed in like just the mind's kind of play on its interpretations of reality, how it like weaves things and it piles in all these different feelings and stuff like that kind of distort our clarity. The less we do that, and the more we step away from that a little bit and kind of like just kind of watch things happen, is when we're able to develop wisdom.
That's beautiful. So when you think about it, like when you're walking with wisdom, you are very present as well. So you're present and you're kind of learning from everything that you are experiencing within these moments.
Yeah. Everything.
Every person that you cross, even if it's just like a hello, that's a moment for you to either be walking with wisdom and presence, or to just kind of like not even notice, So you have like an option to be walking with wisdom in every moment, or to be just like stuck in your head and not really be present in each moment.
Awesome.
So I think that's really beautiful to note. Wisdom is the final goal of every action. So everything that you do, you can embrace wisdom in everything.
Wow.
The definition of wisdom, so we were on point. The quality of having experience, knowledge, good judgment, the quality of being wise. So that's very, that comes from the dictionary, but yeah.
Right on. Cool. Another thing that, unless you had something that was jumping out of you?
No.
Okay. Finding a wise teacher, honor them, ask them your questions, serve them. Someone who has seen the truth will guide you on the path. Something I want to put in here about this that I learned from studying Sufism, which is very close to this in a lot of ways. It's very close to yoga in a lot of ways, which is mystic Islam, the Sufi path. What I wanted to say about this is what I learned from that was we don't need a completely enlightened guru master, because that's difficult to come by. You just need someone who's just like 2 or 3 steps ahead of you in the path to be a guide for you, who can guide you those next 2 or 3 steps, and that'll be consistent, because if they're continuing their work, then and they do the same thing, then it kind of all scales, it all trickles down. So you don't have to go and find some like profound and you can do that, but if you just have somebody around you that's wise, then hang with them, ask them questions. It doesn't have to. I just want to make it clear that it doesn't necessarily have to be a complete guru kind of figure.
You also don't have to really search for them or find them. I truly believe that like the right teacher is going to come into your life and you'll know it and feel it and be like, oh, this person, like just by watching what they do and witnessing them, I'm gaining so much wisdom from just watching how they live their life.
Right.
That's a beautiful teacher right there. And maybe it's not that way. Maybe it comes in different waves, but it's gonna feel right and good. I've had many people come to me and they're like, let me be your guru, kind of. And like I was young, I was maybe like 19, traveling alone, and someone's teaching me about gurus, and they're like, I'll be your guru, and and all this stuff.
Strong word, yeah.
And yeah, it's a strong word. And so, if something feels off, you don't have to just like jump on the first person that calls themselves a guru or anything like that. Like really tune into what feels good and aligned with you and where you're at.
Yeah, and it's good to like trust your sources also. You know what I mean? For example, like it's one thing to listen to somebody speak with authority, and it's another thing to like because anybody can sell you anything. You know what I mean? If they're convicted inside themselves with what they're saying, even if it's a lie, if they say it with confidence, it's believable. Mm-hmm. So there's takes a wisdom of your own to kind of decipher through people's offerings or wisdom or whatever it is. That's a beautiful practice of tuning into your own wisdom and your own innate intuition. Yeah. Awesome. Yes, and know where they're getting their sources from. Where is their wisdom coming from? Yeah, that's beautiful. And what was I gonna say? It'll come if it comes. Okay. May I continue? Yeah. Maybe. When you realize it, you will never fall back into delusion. Knowing it, you see all beings in yourself and yourself in me. Now, this is important to clarify too. This is Krishna speaking. So, Krishna, when he says seeing all beings in yourself and yourself in me, he's saying seeing yourself in the divine, basically, and seeing all beings in yourself. Maybe we can touch on that one because that's kind of like. It's a phrase like, what is that phrase? Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, say it. Just to go back to a wise teacher, I find that some of the most wise teachers are very humble within themselves. And that's a good indicator if you're with like a kind of like an honest teacher. I think that's a good standard to have for yourself to have as a quality. Yeah. So I just wanted to state that I find that to be like very important for my own self and the people that I interact with and the people that I really learn from and listen to is that quality of humbleness. Yeah, because arrogance is not a divine quality. Right. It's not. Yeah. So now, not to say that there's not arrogant people who are wise. Like one of I'm not going to mention any names, but one of my teachers, I trust anything that they said about the subject that I was studying with them, but that's it. There's not another single thing that they would say that I would believe just because of how arrogant they were about things that they spoke about. But their knowledge based on this one specific thing that I was studying was profoundly right on. Right. So you just said knowledge. So maybe that's more knowledgeable. Different. Yeah, I suppose. There was definitely wisdom in there too with the way they with that specific thing. Yeah. But that was a good catch though because that's a fine line, you know. Yeah, I think that's like a little bit of a difference too, like where you can differentiate wisdom and knowledge. Ooh, awesome. Knowledge can come with maybe some arrogance, whereas wisdom, I really think that humbleness is rooted in wisdom. I love it. I love it. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we got to do that. Yeah, thank you. That was good. Anything else you wanted to throw in here? No, I'm ready now. Now I'm ready. Yeah, cool. Seeing all beings in yourself. Now, what's that like for you? Ooh, wow. This is a really beautiful experience for me because it allows you to really have a deeper understanding of everyone around you. Okay. And a deep compassion for everyone around you and patience even. So like when I started viewing people in this way, I tuned into a deeper patience for everyone that I came in contact with. Like if someone were to like do something towards me, I could have compassion and love in my heart for them because one, I know that I've been through it or I will go through what they're moving through and that whatever they're experiencing is within them and they're projecting it onto me and cool. Yeah. Amazing. See all beings in yourself and yourself in me. Wow. Yes. Yeah, and it goes so much deeper than that. You can go ahead and touch on it. Sure. When I look at see all beings in yourself, I just instantly think of karma and how, you know, our own activities in the world, the way we are in the world, we are like so connected with all, like you can't have an experience alone, right? There's no such thing as any given experience without something else being there, right? That's like the divine connection between us on even on a physical plane, but on an energetic plane as well. There's no such thing as a lonely experience. Every experience we have is with something else in the world. If you stub your toe, you stubbed it on something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So seeing all beings in yourself, for me, is like every action that's performed out that I witness is some kind of reflection of my inner world.
Yeah.
It's some kind of like, this is something I talk about, we even talk about often, is like, is that's kind of the essence of action in general in the world. It's a cause and effect kind of thing. Like if I have some presence that's radiating out into the world, the effect of that is the life experiences that I end up having. So that's what I think about when I hear this statement, see all beings in yourself.
And if I can touch on this again, I've had an experience before, like, so I've had this experience where I clearly saw that everyone who created an impact in my life, like everyone I've ever crossed paths with, were a part of me. And I was them. Like we're all within one another, and we all kind of experience life in each other's bodies. Like I saw myself as each person, and each person as me. And as I was shifting into like wakefulness, I had no idea who I was going to wake up as. But in that moment, all these different people who have impacted my life kind of like flashed through my vision, and I had no idea who I was going to wake up as. But in that moment, I promised to love whoever I was. Awesome. You know, and it was such a beautiful experience because I had to let go of any ideas and really like any ego that was surrounded by who I was. Yeah. Because I may have woke up as like a man, you know, I'm not used to being a man, but I had to accept and love that that's who I might be. Wow. It was an intense,
that's profound.
Yeah, it was an intense experience, but it was really
seems beautiful. Like you experienced truly beyond the ego, because the ego is the personal identity, right? That's all it holds all the individual qualities, and that's kind of what it seems like you surpassed, where you're like, oh, like, now I have a choice to like enter into any one of these particular egos. Yeah,
the thing about this though is that I didn't have the choice, so I had to let go of like, I don't even have the choice here. All I have the choice is to love the person I'm going to wake up as, cool. Even though I have no idea who it's going to be.
It's wild. Yeah. This is one I want to move forward from it, but I think this is a good one, where this is one of the reasons I have like 5 different copies of the Bhagavad Gita in different translations, to see how other people translate this verse, because they might word it a little bit differently. Because Sanskrit's difficult to translate into English, and it's good to. This would be a good one to cross-reference. To see what comes out.
Yourself in me. You said Krishna is speaking, yeah?
This is Krishna saying me.
Yeah. So we didn't really touch on that part.
Yeah. So in this lineage, Krishna is the ultimate supreme divine being in existence. Later on in the book, he claims himself to say, I am the Lord of this universe and this reality. So basically, you could look at it however you want with as far as relation to the rest of the text, but this you can say is God or divinity or the divine, the divine subtle presence that exists within everything.
Yes.
Right. So that's kind of, you could say the same thing.
Great spirit, whatever you want to call it.
With whatever works for you. Yeah. And here it's Krishna. And yourself in me, seeing yourself within the divine. The way that I look at that is that everything sprouts from the divine. Everything is created from that divine source. Everything that exists in creation starts and begins and also is encased within this divine infinity.
Right, so we all have this infinite essence within us, and we're walking around as different expressions of that in this physical realm.
Yeah, so nothing is separate from that at all.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
All right, so we keep going? You
Yeah, maybe we'll go to the next.
Yep.
All actions are turned to ashes.
Do you want to read this one?
Oh,
we don't have to, but if you feel like.
I feel like this. I love what you underlined.
Okay,
Maybe
cool.
we just
Yeah,
focus on those things.
Yeah, let's do that.
So, I'll read this whole passage again. Just as firewood is turned to ashes in the flames of a fire, all actions are turned to ashes in wisdom's refining flames. All actions are turned to ashes in wisdom's refining flames.
Yeah. So this is really beautiful because with wisdom, there's a quality of non-attachment. And an attachment is one of the fundamental aspects that causes us suffering and also causes energies to get stuck inside the body. It's attachment. You know, it's when we allow things to keep repeating from the actions that are performed in the world, from all the activities that happen in the world. Our memory stores them. Feelings are connected with those memories. It gets stuck in the body, and then the mind creates these creative loops based on that stuck energy. Right? Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is when with wisdom, again, which defining wisdom as clarity on experiences of the truth about what's going on, right? And what's the greatest good, I guess we could say. When that's in place with all of your actions, nothing sticks to you. So all actions are burned up in the moment.
And actions, all actions. Say what you just said one more time. So all actions are burned up in the moment. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, all our actions are burned up in the moment. And alternatively, if without wisdom, actions stick in our memories and stick in our emotions and stick in our body. And
so you're referring to actions as like thought patterns and...
No, there's action like experience in the world, like you and I have a physical encounter in some way or verbal.
Okay.
Right? We have some kind of encounter in that way, and then that leaves an imprint on the mind, and then it gets stuck in different ways from there.
Okay, so when you go about something with wisdom, you have the wisdom to be able to discern the difference, almost to be able to become aware of those thought patterns and release them.
Yeah, or even not even let them stick to begin with.
Not let them stick.
Yeah.
But this takes practice. This is God. This is profound, and that's why I say
lifetimes.
That's why I say, like, you know, with wisdom comes a lot of practice and comes a lot of awareness.
A lot of mistakes.
And,
a lot of failure.
So it's not like you're just gonna like wake up one day this wise human who nothing sticks to them.
Yeah.
You know. It's important to note that like this takes a lot of practice, and it's a courageous, beautiful effort to move through. So with wisdom, we can purify our minds. Is pretty much, I think, what we're getting at.
Yep.
Purify our lives, really.
Yeah.
With wisdom, and I don't think that. I don't know. I feel like it's always a practice. I don't think you're ever done practicing and learning and growing and becoming wise.
No, if you think you're done, you're going backwards.
Right. So I think that's important to note too.
Oh yeah.
Is that we are human. We're living in a human experience, and so it's important to just kind of remember that. And again, stay humble.
Sure, because there's always for the rest of our lives in these bodies an opportunity to cling to something, to grasp again, to hold on to something, to get attached again, to get averted again. There's always, every moment of our lives, there's opportunity for that.
Right, and why is that? Humans just desire.
Yeah. It's just a function of the mind. It's just the way the mind is constructed.
It
just does
we're
that.
Creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important to form habits that are good for you.
Yeah.
Form habits that bring awareness and expand wisdom within you.
That's great, because again, if we just accept that the mind is going to build habits and build that way, might as well make it good.
Right.
You know what I mean? And eliminate the other. This is really connected with a later on at the end of this little section. It says, who concentrates on the self and whose doubt is cut off by wisdom, is like one of the last things that is said here. And before that it says, a man is not bound by acting who renounces action through yoga. What it means by that is when you really are rooted in the self, the true self that's beyond the mind, that's where wisdom is possible. That's that neutral space that we're talking about perceiving from when you're involved with life, staying centered in that space that's not affected by the mind. That's what it's saying down there.
Is to stay in a state of neutrality, you're saying?
Yeah.
Where you're centered in yourself, your true self?
Yes.
So that you cannot be affected by the worldly things around you.
Exactly. That's one of the best ways that I've found, and that's what it's saying here, to not create new energy loops, I guess we'll call them. You know.
Yeah, and when we do have energy loops, it's important that you feel comfortable to talk about them and communicate them and figure out ways for yourself to release them. So they don't get stuck and build. When we don't bring awareness to them, like, and bring them kind of outside of our minds, outside of like just moving inside of our bodies and minds, then they're just going to continue to grow. Right. So it's really important when you're moving through a loop and you catch it and become aware of it. Don't feel ashamed for moving through any type of thought pattern or loop or anything like that. That's very, very human, and it's very normal, and it happens to everybody.
Every single person.
Every single person. And so a beautiful way that I release thought patterns is by communicating them, and also through movement. Yeah. And breath work, and taking walks by myself.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. I'm so glad you offered that too, because that's really important, because that creates a whole nother toxic layer. If you're just too hard on yourself, it's not necessary to do that.
Yeah.
Should we move forward?
Yeah.
All right. Nothing in the world can purify as powerfully as wisdom. Practice in yoga, you will find the wisdom within yourself. So if you do this, it's inevitable that you will gain this, what we're talking about. Inevitably. If you do this, with what they're saying here, they're saying you will accomplish what we're talking about. There's no way to fail.
You will accomplish what?
What they're saying up here, where you live, where all of your actions are burned in the moment, basically. I'm putting that in my own words, kind of, and relating it to this. But what this is saying is like, because the way that this whole realm of like, I guess, understanding of life is that this is what keeps us stuck, this is what keeps us suffering, is these loops that we're talking about. Is when we have a life experience and that imprints onto the mind, and then the mind stores it and then creates patterns based on that thing, whatever it is.
Yes. So if you have the ability to purify it within yourself in that moment, or you're right, like not even experiencing it at all.
Yeah. Or soon after, you know, if it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Like
but like it is a feeling that you can get to, this like contentment. You'll feel this kind of like overwhelming feeling. I remember I witnessed this like one time in my life where like everything that kind of happened to me, I was just like completely neutral, completely at peace with everything that was moving through. Like nothing could like touch the mind. Nothing could get in there. And it was like the most profound, beautiful, and simply content. Like it wasn't like I was filled with joy. And it wasn't like I was filled with anything at all. I was like empty. And it was beautiful. And I think that like we're gonna shift in and out of like those phases, because the body changes and the seasons change, and I feel like this all affects us. Hormones, all of these things. But as we practice this, we can continue coming back into this space and purifying our own self and our own minds again. and again and again.
As often as you remember, just keep coming back. That's it.
Because what was that? It says...
No, it was up here. Nothing in the world can purify as powerfully as wisdom. Perfected in yoga, you will find the wisdom within yourself.
Yes.
It's guaranteed. It's there, and it's inside. In other words, so that's a kind of a cool another aspect of this is of where we find wisdom. It's in, not only external, because we kind of spoke about it being externally experiential, but the wisdom is inside of yourself. That's where it ultimately comes from. When you're able to observe from that space inside what's going on around, then wisdom is available. There's also an innate wisdom that doesn't require experience. I think also just knowing when you're aligned with that, because this self that we're talking about here, that they're talking about, is divine. So it's in harmony with all of existence and all of life.
Right, going back to yourself in me.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
That's a nice way to like tie those things together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Should we go to the next one?
Yes. Can I touch? I just want to say that again, like innate wisdom that's already within each of us.
Yeah.
It's within each plant. It's within all living things. This innate wisdom lies within us, and that's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And it's beyond our mind. It's beyond our mental activity. So thoughts spontaneously arise from this space when it's available. When we tap into that space inside of ourselves, what comes out of that is trustworthy.
Yeah. And it's so cool because it says here, like, find a wise teacher, and then it says here it's within yourself. So I think that's so beautiful too, that like you're also your own teacher.
Ooh, yeah.
And to remember that.
Amazing, yeah. It's no coincidence that these are so close to each other.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Okay, so the next. Resolute, restraining his senses, the man of faith becomes wise. Once he attains true wisdom, he soon attains perfect peace.
Whoa, that's a heavy one.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have done this whole thing just on that because it's there's so much to cover here. You know, as far as there's so much to clarify here. So first, even resolute. Restraining his senses. What is that?
Restraining his senses. So we kind of talked about this in our last talk, right? With desire.
We did, yeah.
And
very much so.
Yeah, so we're like humans of the senses. We love to indulge. We love to like live through our senses.
Yeah, that's where the mind is based.
Right.
Yeah.
So here we're speaking about restraining the senses. Like get still and quiet with yourself.
And your experiences too, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I guess this is a practice that you can do within all of your experiences. So even when there are, because we take in millions of senses.
Oh my God, all day.
Every minute. We really do.
Yeah.
And then the reticular activating system
lay it down.
will,
She's laying it down.
will, what's the word when you, not strain, but,
Stress?
No, you know, when you're like squeezing something out, so you have like millions of things going in and just a little bit coming out.
Okay, funnel.
Maybe funnel.
Maybe.
So it funnels out just maybe like 1,000 of those senses.
Gotcha.
The reticular activating system. Yeah, and the reticular activating system's only going to strain or filter. That's what I was looking for. It's only going to filter and get to the brain what it is that you focus on the most.
Yeah, right.
So that's huge to think about. That's like your manifestation station in your brain stem right there.
Yeah.
The ROS, the reticular activating system. Such a fun one to look into.
Amazing. I love that. And because that offers choice, because it's based on our interest, right? It's based on what we pay attention to.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to the 52,000 thoughts we have in a day, it comes to which ones are we focusing on and which ones are we discarding. How many of those are about this kind of stuff? And how many of those are about silly things that are meaningless? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so senses are naturally going to funnel through to the brain, but then we still have the choice once they get to the brain to get rid of them all, in a way, to not focus on any of them.
Yeah, beautiful. And again, just to stay consistent with it, for me, anyway, rooting myself in myself.
Your true self.
The true self, the silent center, I like to call it, is really, honestly, the best way that I found to do that.
And how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that takes. It's a new habit to pull out of the mind. You know, when you basically, you kind of like, you have to just create a relationship with thought that is in observance as opposed to absorbing. That's kind of the foundation of it. And it's really just like, for example, like when you have an experience, like let's say I go outside and a dog walks past me, right? And I have whatever experience I have with the dog. I pet it, I scratch his head, he licks my leg, and that's great. And then later on, I go back and I have a memory of that. In the memory, I'm the witness in the memory, but I'm also the witness in the moment with the dog at the same time. It's there, but we tend to get absorbed in the moment and in the thoughts as we're a part of things. So I don't know if that's super clear, but basically it's about being simply witnessing without putting anything on top of what we're witnessing, right? So there's no judgment of anything at all. There's just pure witnessing.
Right, so you're not latching to any experiences or senses that may arise.
Right.
You're just witnessing them and then allowing them to go.
Yeah, or doing whatever's necessary to do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, where are we?
The man of faith becomes wise. Once he attains true wisdom, he soon attains perfect peace. Now, faith they throw in there, and with faith kind of comes like trust. It's like kind of trusting this process, I guess, or trusting your true self in a way. When you really come into a place where that's your root, that's the rock of your existence, that's the stability of your whole existence, is this this kind of fundamental way of living. You know, is this making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you're rooted in this trust, then you can almost trust your innate wisdom and the wisdom around you.
Yeah, and that's kind of when the wisdom like really, really gets established and arises, and you become actually wise. You know, in like a consistent way. And then from that, you attain peace inside. And like, that's a sustainable thing. Like these two qualities, that's why I have these little arrows here, is wisdom and peace go together.
Yeah.
So that's something important too. And then layering on top of that is like, we often seek happiness, but happiness requires certain circumstances to be certain ways for happiness to exist. Peace is very different. Peace is serene and can be consistent all the time if you're not attached to anything.
Yes. So what we're really like moving towards, or what we're trying to attain here, is like this peaceful, content, consistent state of being.
Yeah.
So
that includes even happiness and sadness and all that stuff still happens.
All the things, but within those emotions and feelings that kind of come up is that peace.
Yeah,
within everything.
Underlying everything.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the self, is that peace. Already. It's already there. It's not like you have to find peace or you have to develop this even. It's really about retracing the habits so that you don't, rely on certain things to govern your mood.
Right. So you're really coming back to your true essence.
Yes.
Is what we're talking about. It's like letting go of all the things that we've learned and conditioned, or everything that we're yearning, or everything that the mind has got going on, and kind of clearing the way for our essence to just be.
Very good.
Then we have Ignorant men without faith are easy mired in doubt.
I think that's pronounced mired.
Mired?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the word.
Ignorant men without faith are easily, I don't know.
I think it means absorbed. Are easily absorbed in doubt.
Yeah, are easily absorbed in doubt.
Right? They can never be truly happy in this world or the world beyond. And now ignorance, the root of the word ignorance is ignore, right? So if you can look at it in a way of ignoring what's going on inside of you, or not being aware of what's going on inside of you and what's causing any of your feelings or what's causing any of your actions. Ignorance is kind of a way of just like not really knowing what's going on with you. It's not knowing yourself, ultimately, in a way. And what comes along with that is doubt and confusion, uncertainty, and things like that. To a certain degree, you know what I mean? I get uncertain and confused from time to time too, but it's usually about like what to eat or, just nothing that's like traumatic or going to be detrimental to my existence or anything like that.
I mean, I can talk on this for sure. This was a big one for me. I used to get like so emotional and have no idea why I was emotional and no idea what I was even feeling. I was just absolutely confused all the time. And what I've found is that like the root of that was because I wasn't honoring myself. That was a big one. Like when something would come up, I would shove it back down, and that caused a lot of confusion within myself because it was like my pure self was like, why? It was almost like I didn't understand why I wasn't honoring my true essence, which was like this peaceful space. Because when you're just shoving all this stuff down, you're causing those loops, those thought loops that you're speaking about before.
Totally,
and it becomes very confusing, and you don't even understand why you're in like this state of doubt and confusion, because you're not getting to the root of it.
Yeah. And you're not. It's also evidence that your identification with who you are is still in the mind, and it hasn't moved beyond that yet. So that's a place to look at if that kind of is something that's really present. There's like, and that this coincides with faith also. There's a sureness with faith, right? Along with like trust and that's great. Along with like trust and faith is being sure and just knowing, you know what I mean? And that's something that Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, he said people would ask him like, how do you know this? It's true. And he would say, I know this. This was something he said often. He said, I know this because I looked inside myself. Right? And that's like the best way to go inside and ask your silence. Ask the silence what's real for whatever it is.
Yeah. And so you're not going to be asking yourself what's real, like your little self.
Yeah.
And be searching for an answer. What you're actually going to do is get rid of all the thoughts and find that stillness within you and let the truth arise from there.
Beautiful. And then it says, they can never be truly happy in this world or the world beyond. That's a big statement too. I mean, and it's so consistent with the whole thing here that again, being truly happy isn't reliant. And you can, I guess, say when they're saying truly happy, I think they're talking about too is the happiness that doesn't require circumstantial situations to be specific in a certain way. Just as an example, like if I'm unable to be happy in cold weather, there's a degree of non-reality to that, I guess you could say, or it's not really what I wanted to say. But that's something where your mood is reliant on something that you can't control.
Yes, that's a big one. Just and I think that comes with the practice of wisdom. And like we stated before, wisdom and peace they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to be affected by any outside sources because this wisdom and peace is within you. And so that's really important. So no matter what is going on around you, yes, you may move through grief and sadness and happiness and joy, but beneath all of that is wisdom and peace.
Yeah. This was a big one for me. And one of the areas I noticed this for myself was if I was like sleep deprived, I get really cranky, and like so irritable and things like that. And I'm like, wow. And just in observing this and actively practicing this kind of stuff, it was so powerful, and it was really affecting the mood. And I was like, wow, I don't want to be affected this much by the mood, by something happening. I don't want my whole world to like be negatively experienced because I didn't get enough sleep. You know what I mean? Not to say that I don't try and make sure I get enough sleep. You definitely do that, but to back out of the emotional stuff enough where it's not going to govern your actions or expressions. So it's still felt, it's still honored, and you still act upon it in wise ways, as far as I'm going to go to bed early tonight and make sure I get enough sleep, or I'm going to take a nap right now and stop what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You definitely still take great action, and in fact, even sometimes passionate action if you have to.
Right. Honor yourself.
Totally, completely honoring those feelings that come up, but at the same time, not allowing yourself, or I don't want to say it that way, but removing yourself enough so that you don't express through those feelings.
And so you don't experience through those feelings.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So you're not experiencing the kind of like the pain and whatever else comes with not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can still find peace within it if that happens.
Right. And there's opportunity there to practice that. When you find little moments in your life where, like, if you get hangry, if like you don't eat for a while and you get really angry, and then you're just angry to everybody around you, and it's like, oh shit, they're hungry, get them something to eat, or whatever it is. It's a good place to look at and see if you could try this out and see if it works, and see if it's real, confirm it that this is real. I mean, I trust the Bhagavad Gita because it's ancient, it's lasted for thousands and thousands of years, and people are still studying it and reading it today and living by it. This is the book that Mahatma Gandhi lived by, and it's done profound things to so many people in the world. So I trust it enough to try it, at least, and then confirm it in myself.
It's beautiful.
We're here.
A man is not bound by action who renounces action through yoga. A man is not bound by action who renounces action through yoga, who concentrates on the self, and whose doubt is cut off by wisdom.
That's a good one too. Anything present for you with that one?
I mean, it like ties into everything that we've touched on, and it kind of brings it all together.
Yeah. And it's really great because, and this is a subject that can take a lot of discussion because there's so many different like scenarios we can involve with this. A man is not bound by action who renounces action through yoga. So the word renounce there, I love this word. Just because you have to talk about the word. You can't just hear it and then say, okay, I know what renunciation is. You kind of have to really discuss what it is in this context, because renouncing action doesn't mean you don't act, right? Just kind of like what I was saying before, or what we were talking about before. It means you're a renunciate inside. This is just another way of phrasing that we don't attach to things. It's just another way of saying we don't attach to things. To be a renunciate inside, it's like being celibate during sex. You know what I mean? You're not attached to the moment where it's going to be a destructive or toxic thing for you. You're present with it. You act within it, but at the same time, it doesn't influence your later actions.
Beautiful.
At least not in a way that's going to, cling.
That's not going to bind you.
That's not going to bind you, exactly. And this relates right over here where it talks about. It says, even if you were the most evil of doers, wisdom is the boat that would carry you across the sea of all sin. This is directly related with that one too, because not bound by action, if you renounce the actions that you perform, even if they're evil, through the yoga, and you concentrate on yourself, then you'll become wise, and that'll shift the habitual actions that you perform out in the world, and you'll become a greater being.
And then again, going back to purification, the wisdom is in wisdom's refining flames. Nothing in the world can purify as powerfully as wisdom. So those all tie together very nicely.
Really amazing, just string of text here. It's like, it's so incredible how it all works off each other, and it's all helps to clarify this like kind of one message of just be rooted in the self. Right.
Because even these two lines, like, that are back to back, who renounces action through yoga, who concentrates on the self.
Right.
And so again, it's not renouncing all action, but it's instead concentrating on the self.
Right. And this removes doubt, because wisdom is what slays doubt, basically. When you develop this kind of wisdom that comes through this practice of anchoring your awareness in the self, the wisdom is developed, and then everything else just kind of dissolves in a way. And over time, it takes something to be consistent with. And I remember one of my meditation teachers said to me once, he said, you just practice as often as you remember, and then you remember more often, and then eventually it's just there. It's natural.
Building new habits, baby. So important.
Yeah. Anything else you want to touch on or sum up, or anything else present?
So this last part, who concentrates on the self and whose doubt is cut off by wisdom. So by concentrating on the self, the true self, we release doubt, we cut off doubt, and we can live in a space of wisdom and peace.
Right. Beautiful. And I like tying this in again with the evil actors or evil people or whatever. If this is done even by evil, right? What are the qualities of action that a wise person performs, or that a peaceful person performs, right? If someone is peaceful inside themselves, they're not going to cause trouble out in the world.
Right.
I mean, trouble out in the world is trouble inside. It's directly related. How we act is directly related to how we feel inside. So if we're wise and peaceful inside, our actions actually will change. The actions that come out of us will change. And we become, I don't want to say good, bad, but
purified.
We become purified. That's a perfect word. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. And this is amazing. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little verses in this little book that's a part of a gigantic book.
Right. So someone who is an evildoer, they have to seek their true self in order to purify themselves.
Yeah, I would say so, because whatever they're born into, that made it even possible for them to think evil, or for them to act in an evil, what we would call evil in our moral category, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like when we're speaking about evil, it may not even be like an evil person, but like theft, like I used to love to like steal little things, and like little things like that, like that can also be what they're speaking on here.
It's in the realm, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Like whatever type of evil you want to talk about, from like small to large, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
If you want to seek the self, anyone can do it.
Anyone, and it will work for everyone. That's what's being said here, is that it will work for everyone, and that's what's really remarkable about this.
And there's different ways to seek the self.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the goal of all the spiritual paths in a way. You could say, there's so many there's so many quotes from so many different realms of like saying, like even Jesus said, know thyself. Buddha's teaching was know yourself more than anything else. In here, Krishna even says at some point, the highest knowledge one can have is knowledge of the self. You know, so it's all over the world in all different cultures. This knowing that is the greatest knowledge that we can have, is the knowledge of our deepest, truest self, and also just the knowledge of our superficial self too.
Yeah.
When you're fully aware of all that stuff, then you really have some clear perspective on what's going on. Then you can make changes if it's necessary.
Yeah, and this ties into learning from all your experiences as well,
Right.
and tuning in and tapping into the innate wisdom within you, which can just come from being silent with yourself as well. But yeah, there's so many different paths that you can take to get to the same self.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these different philosophies, all these different religions, and I don't think it matters what you study, as long as you're seeking with a pure heart your true self.
Yeah, and you'll be guided based on your intentions too.
Yeah.
You know, like and also really pay attention to what you end up studying and know your sources. You know, again, I mentioned before, like I really trust the Bhagavad Gita because of looking where it comes from, looking who studied it. You know, lots of enlightened beings have studied this book and done great things with themselves and in the world, even like Mahatma Gandhi, even politically, based on this book. So this is something that I really know that I can trust enough to put into practice. But it's something for you, whatever practice you may find yourself involved with, or that you might already be involved with. One, ask yourself if it's working to a degree yet. It doesn't have to immediately. You know, it might take time for things to settle in. But notice also other people that study it and what their behavior has been like, and what they're teaching, what their individual expressions have been like.
Yeah, so good. And this is another way to practice your intuition and to enhance your innate wisdom or enhance your intuition by studying something and then getting silent afterwards, or practicing it and seeing how it feels inside of you.
Yeah.
And noticing if it's, you know, if it's working for you, noticing if it feels in alignment with yourself.
One more thing too, I just want to clarify also is that I realized what I had just said about, you know, looking at how other people act who study this kind of stuff. Really important to know that nobody's perfect, and we're not looking to, like, when you're doing this kind of like research and saying, well, what are the people, what's going on with this book, you know, where what are people who study this book like, and things like that. If you have a doubtful mind, that'll be proven, you know.
You'll find something.
You'll find plenty of people out there who didn't act well, and this doesn't mean picking people apart and expecting people to be perfect, because there's absolutely nobody in existence that's perfect. Even the most enlightened beings were hated by some, you know. So I just wanted to clarify that because Ram Dass, I remember him saying something really beautiful about, you can't get stuck on other people's karma. You got to know that everybody's got something to work through, and everybody makes mistakes throughout their lives, you know. So I just wanted to be clear on that, is don't be so hard on people when you're doing research like this. But at the same time, look at the texts that you're going to be studying, look at it in a general sense of, like, are these really good beings that are out in the world that are doing things, and just know everybody's human too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, don't be too hard on yourself while practicing these things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Be gentle with yourself in the process of knowing yourself.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful discovery and such a beautiful journey, a never-ending, beautiful journey.
Yeah.
An unraveling of the self.
It's beautiful. So I hope this offers. I hope a lot of this makes sense. This is very dense material. You know, this is like really, really deep stuff. So I hope this is clear. If it's not in any ways and you have questions, please reach out. I mean, I love talking about this stuff, and I know, Lexi, I think I could speak for you too and say that you really enjoy this.
I do.
And So yeah, reach out if there's any confusion, if you need help with any of it, or if you have a different perspective that might even help us clarify it too. You know, we'd love to hear it. All right.
Yeah. Again, this is just our perception and our thoughts on it. This is really our first time discussing it and diving into it together. And so we're always open to hearing what you have to say. Any questions that you may have are all wonderful and welcomed and appreciated. So
thank you so much.
So much love, so much gratitude. Muchas bendiciones.
This is muchas bendiciones. couldn't get it out. Muchas bendiciones. Many blessings to you.